Hi, and welcome to the new EOS online subscription system. Today we will be discussing how to configure the system in regards to adding the software on the system, as well as the dynamically install the notification for each subscription, as well as log and record each subscription through their invoices and backlog for each month in order to ensure that we have a full comprehensive details regarding each subscription and its payment as well as its cycle. So let us begin. First of all, we will need, in order to access subscription, we will need to go to the software and subscription menu item. In there, we will find two sub-menu items, one for the vendors and one for the software and the online subscription. The vendor menu window, once we click on it, it will direct us to the vendors list window, which is a window responsible to inputting all registered vendor for the organization. Depending on each school, the school admin will be inputting the school vendors. It will allow them to identify all the vendors for the system as well as their information. As you can see, the window for the vendors list has the same default for all the EOS apps, including the filters for in use, not in use, all records, filter for the amount of entries displayed. Like for example, if we click on here, it will be only 10. If we increase it, it will be 25, depending on the amount filter. The customizable sortable grid, depending on each column, the search bar, as well as the export line, which including the printing, CSV, PDF, Excel, as well as copying to the clipboard. In order to create a new vendor for the system and identify it, we will need to click on the button for the new vendor. Once we click on the new vendor, we will be faced with the default values like for name, email address, the city and the country of residence, the province, the state, all the information related to that vendor, which allow us to know the location of the vendor, as well as allow the system to identify the correct billing for each vendor and their subscriptions. If by any chance the country or the city is not available within the system, please do contact your system administrator and if you are the system administrator, you just simply go to the master data and you will find that there is a window for the country as well as the city that you can relate, which will allow you to identify the missing country for all the users in order to access the system. And then we will need to go to the software window. As you can see, the software window is a window that concludes all the subscriptions registered within the system, including software, educational, non-educational, and within all their information for regarding renewal cycles, as well as renewal date and invoices. In order to identify a new software for the system or a new subscription, what we will need to do is click simply on the new software button. And again, as we mentioned, all the EOS apps has the same filters that we discussed in the previous windows. Once we click on new software, we will be directed to a new window for the software or the online subscription. This window has 3 tabs. Each of them specifically identify a certain aspect regarding the software or the online subscription. The first one is the main info, which identify the name of the software, description, the list of the vendor. Again, if the vendor is not available, you can contact your system administrator and you will find it there. You can put in a logo, a category, school section, year groups, departments. If there's like a software like a web application, you can use the URL, username, password, or any additional notes that you need. If you notice in here that you will find that there's something called the notice of expiration, which is one of the key factors how the system identifies when the subscription needs to be notified regarding the renewals for the new date. The default value is 30 days, but this is not the default value for all organizations. It can depend on each organization depending on the rules and the structure of the organization. This will be identified by the system admin, and in order to do so, you just need to go to the school hierarchy, school information, and within the school information you will find expiry notice days. This will set the default value that we just saw in the software subscription. Getting back to the software subscription window, we will find some subscription, like for example, we can log a subscription but it's not in use. We can just add the subscription and make it not in use, which will create the subscription for us, but will not put it as a list of active subscriptions if needed. If it's active subscription, we can just keep it by default as in use. Some subscriptions are a one-off payment. This in this, the checkbox is renewal works in place. If we check on it, as you can see, the notice of expiration is completely customizable. We can make it 5, 50, no matter how many days, and is mandatory. Once I uncheck is renewal, as you can see, it became dimmed, which makes sure that this is a one-off purchase for the subscription. This feature allows us to identify which softwares has renewal or just are one-off. Once we access that, we will find a second tab called Renewal Tracker. The Renewal Tracker itself is also dependent on the main info. If I say this is renewable, and I say like 60 days, and I go to the Renewal Tracker, you will see that there is a default for the renewal date to be stated because I stated it is renewable. But once I uncheck it, it will return to 0 and the renewal date will not become mandatory anymore. So in order to showcase that in a better way, let's go to find a subscription that has this information. Like for example, if we go in here, this is one of the subscriptions that has a renewal, unchecked renewal, and accordingly the renewal tracker created an order line. We will put in the vendor, when it was paid, expiry date, currency, payment method, item type, item unit. All of this are part of the master data, and if it's not available, the school administrator can add it from here, and if you can't, just contact your school administrator and they will add it for you. Once this line is added, will be each line of renewal for each subscription. So the renewal itself, once you, for example, the academic year and then you start the new one, you will add the renewal line again to put the new renew tracker. Some subscriptions have subcategory payments like a one-off payments, or can be a renewable subscription or additional feature added on the software. We will showcase both to understand how the system deals with both depending on the need. For example, in this subscription, we have the main subscription that's valid for 364 days. We have a renewal date. We have all the information related to it. But we will find in here, if you check on it, you can just click on edit, which will allow you to edit the information for it. As you can see, it's been added. Or you will find there is a plus button. As you can see, it's stated called additional cost. This button is responsible for adding any additional features or subscriptions within the main subscription that is added on the main bill. Once I click on add, it will direct me to a new window that will contain the description, pay date, expiry date and renewal date, and all the information regarding the additional cost, which will show as such on a monthly basis or on a daily basis, depending dynamically and very flexible depending on the subscription and how it is paid. But main point that we need to mention, once we create an additional cost, we have two types of additional costs. Sometimes the additional costs can be renewable, like this feature, or for example, if we go to another subscription that has additional cost, okay, and we go to the renewal tracker, we will see there is an additional cost, but if we open it, you will find that there is no expiry date and there is no renewal date, which indicates to the system that this was a one-off payment. That is not a recurring payment. Accordingly, there is no need for a renewal date or an expiry date. Added to that, to showcase as well the case of subscription that does not require renewal, if we open in here, and we will find that this is not a renewable subscription. It will has all the information. The renewal tracker has no sub payment, as you can see, and it has no expiry date also, because it has no expiry, no renewal, because it's, as we mentioned before, depending on the information for the is renewable. If we check that, we can automatically and dynamically put the amount of days for notification, even if it differs from the default value, because it's dependent on each subscription. Not all subscription can follow the same value, so we can have it dynamically by changing the value in the notice of expiration, aside from the default value that is set by the school administrator. The final tab that we can discuss is the document or the invoice tab. This document or invoice tab is responsible for uploading all documentation for the subscription regarding billing as well as invoices to keep a backlog for all the transactions being made regarding the subscription. For example, this only has one invoice. If we want to add additional more, we can just choose a file, set the date, put a description, and once we choose a file, we click on upload and save, and this will add additional record. Or if we clear, it will clear all the subscription invoice that we just input. Of course, all the invoices are editable. You can just edit in here, and once you do, you will find that you can choose a different file, upload it, and once you're done, you can click on update, or you can just click on cancel or delete. Are you sure you want to cancel? Yes, okay. And this delete button as well, if we click on it, we will be having a message stating, are you sure you want to delete this record? Which we need to be very careful regarding deleting the record, because once the invoice is deleted, we might not be able to retrieve it back. This includes all the information regarding the subscription and how the notification regarding each subscription is configured. In the upcoming videos, we will be discussing further detail how the system provides notification for all subscriptions as well as throughout the cycle of the order, depending on the workflow for each organization.